Hello, and it's Ray Hiltz here, and welcome to episode 9 of the Ray2Go show. Today, we're going to be talking about giving it away for free. What do you do when someone comes up to you and says, hey, can we do lunch? I would love to pick your brain, and how many of your clients have been freely availing themselves of the milk and not buying the cow?
It was try before you buy software. And then shareware evolved into something called try before you buy. And it seems like that works for some industries, but there is a lot of conversation that has been going on and a lot of ideas and a lot of expectation promoted by media agencies and advertisers and things like that, that you get to give it away for free. And I think that, or you give it away for free, and if people want it, then they pay for it. And I think there's a really fine line in there, both for products and for services, because there were very few just give me money because you like it type of things out there. People were making money other ways if they had something like that. So if you had a game or a piece of software, it did something and then it stopped. It didn't do everything without a string attached to getting a check in the mail originally, or using a credit card online eventually, or now whether you're paying with Bitcoin or PayPal or who knows what, or Stripe out in the world, all of those things, I think it's an interesting evolution. And I think our definition of what it means might be different than the reality. And we end up in this area of, I really need to, but I can't because I have to get paid. Oh, but this is what people want. But man, do I feel icky when I do that.
I'm going to ask you guys that are listening, how do you deal when people come up to you and ask you to, hey, can you spare a few minutes so I can pick your brain about something? How do you deal with that? Or does it bother you at all to do that? Anybody? We have a seat open if anybody wants to join us, by the way. All right. Scott, have actually someone come up to you and say, listen, can we do lunch and let's to figure out what you do and maybe you can help me?
Well, because all of my business is online, and because and I've got a great story for you, and because I only have like one or two clients within within a lunch geography of me, that's not necessarily the best analogy. But early on, there was someone who's going to remain nameless who wanted to have a kind of a consultation. And this is someone who wanted to have a quote from us. So I got on and he said, can I record this hangout? And I said, sure, fine. So we talked for an hour and a half, and it went on and on and on. And this was a little bit early on for me. And my head was a little bit bigger than it necessarily needed to be, because I was the center of attention and giving advice and things like that. But he never once had any intention of paying me, and he didn't have the ability to, even if he wanted to. But the thing that really got to me is that he took this private conversation that was recorded, and I don't exactly know why. And years later, I saw that he had it on his YouTube channel. That was one of the things that he was sharing publicly. I asked him to take it down, and he said no.
Seriously?
I don't take down good content. And then I said, no, I mean, this was in confidence. And, I really think, and he said, stop hassling me. I'm going to, disassociate my account. I'm going to ban you and never contact me again. So, wow. That was a wake-up call for me.
That's one of those things where you get into some other issues. And I know I've done some free consultations that were recorded, and I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. I also have one that was done completely publicly. And I think that also is something you have to be really careful of, because if you don't know what you're doing in that conversation and you think you're giving advice to one person and that ends up public, that's very different than having a very clear, here are the steps I follow for these types of conversations. So even if it gets out, or even if I allow it to be out, it fits and it feels good to me afterwards, and it can be used as a hook and extra advertising. Because I'll bet in the grand scheme of things, He thought it was so great. He wanted to give it away for free to tell people about you, Scott, not realizing the depth of the information and the nitty-gritty of the how-to that you were reserving just for him in that one-on-one place. And I think that's up to us when we're choosing to give information or not.
But you know what's interesting about that, Jess? And you open up a whole new grab bag of issues.
Okay.
And that is, people don't pay attention to where things originate. They pay attention to where things come from. And that's why I have an issue with things like Paperly and those things, because often people share things and people, even if the byline is there, and people don't go beyond that, and they basically give the credit to the person that they received it from. So Scott, in your case, it makes them look smart if they share your stuff. They may not even say that this isn't mine or this belongs to so and so. They'll just let people assume that it's their stuff, and that's what you're saying, Jess, as well. I mean, when you share stuff, when I share things, it's a reflection on my taste and my interest. So I do, when I do my weekly newsletter, marketing news, I read all that stuff through the week, and the stuff that I find interesting and stuff that I think my followers will find interesting. So therefore, I have no problem. I would not share something just because it's trendy or whatever. So I would hope that people use that to reflect upon me and my judgment and my taste and my expertise. So I don't think in your case, Scott, that person, I don't know who that person is. He could just be a prick, but maybe he just wanted to make himself look good.
It's an interesting comment here from whoever Positive Dogs is in North Carolina. And he or she is saying, I think at first I give a piece of information, but then I don't give the whole pie. They have to know the value of what I'm asking them to pay for. And that's true. They do. But I think if you've been around a while and if you have a portfolio to show, then you can demonstrate the value.
I agree completely with you.
And Scott, you have an awful lot of great stuff to show.
Well, I read it. Thank
Scott,
you.
And your videos too.
So do you, Ray. So let's not leave you out of this. You do too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to bring up. I'm sorry to interrupt it, because I meant to bring this up before, and it's going to get lost in the stream if I don't. It's from Dave Moore, and he said, it's hard to charge for something if you also give it away for free. And we had that discussion a bit in the show, because we do put an awful lot of free stuff out there. Maybe people expect, why should you charge me now if you also do this for free online?
Oh, I don't think that's the case. I mean, the more you give away in the context you're just discussing is, I mean, I've written thousands and thousands of posts on my blog and articles in all kinds of places. The more I give in that context, the more I get. The more I give to somebody who's picking my brains, the less I'm going to get.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree. Completely and utterly agree. So, and I'm going to pop out, guys. It was so wonderful to be here for just a few minutes today. I hope somebody else comes and takes my seat really quick.
Good. Take care, Jess. Bye.
But that was one of the lessons I learned early on as well, is that I did the Scott treatment for one person who I must have done 50 of them. And, that's an awful lot of work over the course of the year. And what I got from it, I suppose, was I learned my craft and I got a reputation. But when it came time to, gee, will you do this for me? When it wasn't, can I do this for you, but will you do this for me? And I tried to charge money for it. It was like pulling teeth. And I got what I asked for. And there was so much resentment there that person has never hired me again, and has taken, video in-house and does great things with video and short videos. It's just that and I decided that I'm not going to let that spoil our relationship, because that was more of a rookie mistake on my part, I think, than anything else. And he probably would have never been a good match for me in the first place. So
there you have it. And I think that, one of the things that happens when you do this for a while is you realize that sometimes you have to walk away from money, that some people are really not worth the trouble. The vast majority of people don't behave that way.
Yeah. And also there's another class of people, and I'd be interested, BL, in your comment, and Ray, yours, and people who are also watching. There are a handful of people I just like. and I will get on and we will have conversations, and I will, it is the very best that I have to offer, and I'm rooting for them, and it's on friendship. And I would be surprised if we ever get a business relationship going, but it's just so much darn fun to see them progress on the same path that we all are on, to go through. And, so there's friendship as well.
You and I do that all the time. And I learn from you, and I think you also learn from me. I mean, the people I do that with, I do that because it's mutual. We learn from each other. So that's a whole different thing.
Is there Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask out there, because we had talked about in the show, we also talked about not only brain picking, but also spec work. And I was wondering if anybody who's listening has done spec work or has changed how they do spec work. And spec work, would you like to explain what spec work is?
Well, spec work is when somebody says, I want you to write a proposal and perhaps I'll hire you after you do it. Or you're an architect, I want you to design my house, and if I like the design, perhaps I'll hire you to do it, in which case you would laugh your ass off because they were so silly as to ask you that. How this conversation came about was with a video that I'm trying to remember his first name. His last name is Nud. Had in Adweek saying, there's really something wrong with the advertising industry because we do so much work on spec. Well, we're not in advertising, we're in marketing, but we still are asked the same thing. And he had this whole video that was just hilarious that had, people asking an architect to do free work. She left, going into a restaurant saying, I'd like a free meal, and if I like it, I'll pay for it. Guy said, get out of my restaurant. What are you crazy? And he asked all these different people. And then one of them said, do you do what you do for nothing? And he said, no. And he said, well, then why the hell should I? And so that's the real question, is like, why should we? But we're asked to do it, and it's very hard to say no. But what I shared during the show is like, I've actually never gotten business that way. Not in 30 years.
And I find that very interesting, because I wonder, do you think it's subsiding? Do you think there's still the amount of pressure on agencies to do requests for proposals and spec work?
Big agencies or small? Well, big agencies are, that's what they do.
That's the way the business is. But I mean, let's say smaller agencies.
New business teams. Yeah.
Okay. And again, if you guys have experience with this, please jump in. There's a seat open if you want to come in. Yes, Scott.
Oh, I was just thinking that institutionally there are some government jobs that require a request for proposals, and there are just processes. So it depends on the larger context and what the industry standards are. That's all. There wasn't a big comment.
Well, I mean, the big question is one of the big questions, especially for us who are on the web all the time, is: are we giving too much away, and why? Like, why do we do free shows? Why do we do free blog posts? Why do we do all this if it's not to get clients, right? So is that becoming a problem in and of itself? As we said earlier, is it the fact that we're doing so much for free, and social media? The whole big thing about social media was that it was a free platform for you to do advertising on. Is that kind of warped the marketplace?
The rules are just presenting itself. I have a saying, I've said this many times before, and that is our children or grandchildren are going to look back at us and they're going to say how quaint, how naive all of us are with social media. And, maybe the poster child for that is the news industry, because you have news organizations that gave the news away for free for so long that now, their traditional means of broadcasting and making money are drying up. So they're wanting to charge money for people to go to their sites to want to read their news. And there are a few experiments out there. I think the New York Times has a subscription, and there are others that are out there. But my gosh, most of the news organizations are in crisis because they gave their product away so often. That's the expectation that almost everyone on the internet has. And if you're going to charge for your news, that's fine, because someone else is going to give the same news away for free. All you have to do is Google it.
Or do you think that whole model is changing then? I mean, because now we have the live
No.
streaming thing where everything's live streaming, right? Apple's got live stream now. Amazon's got live stream now. Newspapers are now charging for their iPods or Apple apps. And music. Look at music. Remember the whole torrent thing, the free torrent stuff. Now we have Apple Music, Google Music, and people are paying a monthly fee. Are we going towards a subscription kind of model now?
People have tried that in the past, and it didn't work. I think at this point, it's working. It's a matter of the value of the content. If the not everybody is able to make that model work. You look at the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, you look at the New Yorker, you look at, they give a lot away for free, but if you really want the content, you're going to pay for it. And given that there is so much good content, a lot more people are willing to do it. But, the idea that information should be free is endemic to the internet. And it's a ridiculous and stupid idea because information is not free.
No, I mean, how do you attach value to something that's free?
Yeah, well, it can't be because bills have to be paid, and you can't pay the bills with free. So here's the poster child of maybe for free. If you want to look at this case study, and that is, for a long time, analytics was a very lucrative and emerging industry. You could go and people would charge you to find out what was going on in the internet, and then Google came along with Google Analytics. They launched it and they made it absolutely free. And there were a half a dozen companies out there that were very promising, and they pulled the rug right out from under them, and they failed because nobody could compete with Google Analytics, which is free. And yet somehow Google has been able to parlay that into being one of the most profitable, biggest companies in the world. How do you explain that? They're based on advertising. Their model is still search. It's still advertising. It's still pay-per-click. That's always going to be there.
But they give so much away.
But do you remember those days, Scott, before WordPress, when you hire someone to do your website, and you couldn't get any information about the website in terms of who was visiting, how long were they on the site, without having to go to your web designer, and then they would take time to get back to you with a report. And now you just click on a little app thing, and it's all there for you. Yeah. But you pay for that.
So the answer is that we're in a revolution, and we're reinventing things that are brand new. And 100 things are try. You throw a lot of things up on the wall, a lot of spaghetti up on the wall, and some of it sticks. It'll all sort itself out. And by the year 2025, which is an eternity in internet time, I'll bet you that, well, first of all, the power structure will figure out how to reestablish their power. And, there'll either be a revolution or there won't be, but it'll all settle down, in my opinion.
I don't know about that, Scott. I think that's a little pie in the sky view of it. I don't know. I don't know where it's going.
You think there's going to be turmoil interminably? That this is the new norm?
Yes, I think there will be turmoil interminably because there's always going to be new people, new apps, new ideas, new platforms coming into it. I mean, Dave, my co-host on my show, he wrote a post last week. This wasn't the topic, but the headline kills me, is social media content a deal with the devil? And, I thought he meant, is it a deal with the devil because once you start, you can't stop? But, he had a whole nother idea in his post. But, I mean, in a way, we have made a deal with the devil. We can't stop producing content. And, it's wearying sometimes. But you can disappear so quickly, it's not even funny. So
it's rather ethereal when you actually think of it, right? We're little light blinks, we're all these little ones and zeros, and really you have to, and we say this, often in the show, is that you really have to take this networking experience and put it in real life. You do have to meet up with people face to face, and you have to have phone calls and talk with people outside of this platform. And I think sometimes what happens is that people get encased in this kind of bubble, and they think this is their life. Everything they do is going to be on this platform. And it doesn't work that way. I mean, as much as this is nice talking face to face, and I can see your body language, BL, and yours, Scott, and it brings a whole different dimension. It's not the same if we were across at a coffee table having a coffee and
Sure
chatting.
isn't. It sure isn't. But
It's a lot better.
there's a lot of wonderful things that happen with this type of format that can't happen with email. Email is a terrible way to have a conversation. Email is a terrible way to try and make a point. Misunderstandings are so vast in email. So this is certainly better than that, and something better than this will be around.
Oh, for sure. And I don't think email is there for conversation.
But a lot of people do.
That's a big mistake.
Oh,
That's a big mistake.
God, I hate email.
So what do you think? I don't know if anybody wants to jump in and talk about this any further, but I'm kind of done with this topic. Let's jump into something, different. What's new, for instance, the Twitter like thing. I know you discussed it on your show, BL.
I hate it.
The change to the heart thing. Why do you hate it?
I hate it. I don't love the content. When I favorite something, I'm doing it because I want to read it later almost all of the time. So just give me a read later button. I don't love content on Twitter. It's very rare that I'm going to love it. Favorite was wrong. This is wrong. I don't know why they think that people want to love content.
Maybe you're taking it too literally, though, BL. I don't think people. It's like I don't like everything on Facebook. I'd say most things I don't like, but you don't have that option, But I think, you and I and many other people that are here are not expert, but veteran Twitter users, and so we each have developed our own a definition of the favorite button, right? I use to acknowledge that I've seen that tweet and that's cool. Or I use it when I favorite. I have an IFTTT recipe that puts it in my Google spreadsheet so I can see all the tweets that I have favorited. So it's a bookmarking thing. There's different ways of using it, but Twitter wants more users and they want people to use it more. And I think they thought, and they probably were right, but people get confused on favorite because people see that little star and they think of a bookmark. And I think, Twitter maybe wanted people to interact more as a social platform as opposed to the broadcasting platform that it is, basically.
Well, they did. There was a read later on the mobile, but that doesn't seem to be there anymore either.
No, I don't think so.
And, they're trying a lot of different things. Moments is great, I think. I check Moments in the morning to see what they have there. They don't keep it up to date, though.
We don't have that here.
You don't have Moment? Oh, yeah, it's only in the U.S. for starters. Sorry about that. Yeah, but it has some really good points, and I think it would be helpful to people who are new to the platform. And, I think I don't think Twitter's broken. I think Twitter works fine. I don't have any problem with the way Twitter works. And I understand that. I just think they went public too soon, frankly. But, I'm not selling my 10 shares of stock.
You get 10 shares in Twitter?
Oh, yeah.
Scott, you're pretty new to Twitter. I think you just joined with Blab, didn't you?
Well, kind of. What happened is I started Twitter probably back in 2006. I was one of the very first people to be on Twitter because that was part of my job, and it was at a hospital district. And what I noticed was that the big hospitals in the Puget Sound area, they were talking to each other, and I was thinking, wow, this is really great. They're complimenting each other. Well, what it was that the, marketing person at these 3, 4, 5 hospitals in the area were talking to each other, and nobody else was involved in it, but it sure was a nice gab fest while it was going on. And after a while, it just kind of dropped off. After a year or two, I stopped, and it's only been recently that I've gotten back to Twitter. And I think you have to have a certain amount of knowledge, and there's a language, and there's a culture and an investment. And the further developed these platforms become, so that a newbie who comes in increasingly has higher and higher hurdles to overcome before they are an insider and feel that they can get the benefit from the platform that those who have grown up with it have?
Well, back in the beginning, which I was there as well, on Friday nights, my friends and I would get together and chat on Twitter because there really wasn't anywhere else you could do it. But you bring up an important point. People don't want to learn anything. That's why Blab is so popular. You pretty much have nothing to learn. You just come here and you just start talking. Of course, most people will bore you to tears, and most people will have lousy sound and they won't have good light, but they're here because they can use it. It doesn't have a barrier to entry. On the other hand, Google Hangouts on Air, until you get good at that, it took me quite a long time. I've been studying how to use it for a couple of years, and I learn new things all the time, as you do too. So people don't want to have to learn anything. Well, if you don't want to have to learn anything, go use Facebook.
But that's really important. I love that because first of all, my husband George is like that, right? He gets a telephone, a brand new telephone, never looks at the manual, never looks at he just assumes it's going to happen, right? If I press this button, it's going to happen. And I don't think I met anybody who, when they first got on Twitter, understood it. And that includes myself, because I had joined Twitter back in, I was a bit late actually. It was like 2009, and I tried, but I just couldn't figure out why. What was the purpose of this thing? And none of my friends were, early adopters or tech people, so I had nobody to have my Friday night chats with or whatever. So I didn't have that happening until I went to a podcast camp or something, and I met other people on Twitter, and then we started communicating. And I thought, once more time you're on there, the more that you see, oh, this is a news feed, so I can make little groups, I can make a list, and I can follow these, and then it sort of falls into place. But you're right, most people don't have the patience to do that exploration and learning.
Well, that's the fault of the internet in many ways, because everything is instant, and there is a learning curve to anything that's worth knowing. Did you have a learning curve when you started using Excel or PowerPoint or WordPress or?
Oh my God, yeah.
Right? I mean, calling the designer in a panic. How do I do this? How do I do that? If it's worth learning, it's
but what happens
time.
What happens is you learn it once, and then you've got it for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
With what we've got going on, there's always something new, to the point where we've got social media fatigue.
I'm pretty exhausted.
Something new comes along. Oh my God, I've got to. Yeah.
Well, at some point, and I consciously say this now, because I know that people keep saying, oh, Instagram is the place. You have to be on Instagram, and I have an account, and I may post 3 times a month. I don't know.
Instagram's fun.
But I know it's fun, and I hear it's fun. It's not fun for me because I don't use it that much. But I can imagine all kinds of ways, and I can tell clients, yeah, this is really good for your particular business. But I don't have time in my life to invest in a platform a lot. So I'll choose my top 4, and that's where I'm going to focus on. And if I'm an old fogey and I miss something, then so be it. But as long as the people that I want to talk to are there, that's where I'm going to be.
Well, David Kutcher says, I love Instagram for fun, but I can't stand people that try to force their business into it.
Well, that's true of every social platform. Those marketers, man, they ruin everything. Right? You get a fun social platform like, Facebook or whatever, and all of a sudden the marketers hit it. Now it becomes a marketing advertising platform. And it's,
There is an inherent incongruity between these things that are on the internet for people to communicate and trying to monetize it. It really is a little bit of a disconnect and a real conflict there.
But we have to understand, these are private companies that own these platforms, right? We're renting space on them,
and they have to monetize them.
And our rent's basically our personal information and eyeballs. So we can't complain too much. It is a pain in the ass, but that's what it is.
Well,
what's that, Bill?
I have to go.
Oh, okay. Well, great to see you.
Good to see you all. You might invite David Kutcher. He's got a lot to say over there.
He always has a lot to say.
I know.
Well, come on down. That's what this is for.
Yeah, it's so. Go ahead.
LO is actually a 501 something or other. It's a new breed of corporate. It's a social corporation.
Yeah.
So its charter is to be in the public good. So if we were really serious about it, we would all migrate on over to LO.
And we were at the time. We had a whole show about that. Hi, David. How you doing?
He's shaking his head back and forth.
Who is there now? And I feel bad because, I mean, ideally, it makes sense, and it's nice to have a platform that's not monetized and it's not commercial and all that, but nobody's there. And I know the same arguments were made about Google Plus. Nobody's there, but people that I like were there. So I spent time there,
That's what BL is saying.
.com/awesomeness, and I never use it anymore. I gave up on it.
On what, David?
LO.co/awesomeness.
Oh, yes.
That's my handle. Is awesomeness.
Oh, is it?
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody wouldn't click on that and follow it.
But it's got a niche amongst designers, which I can't understand because it's really freaking ugly looking. And nobody's there.
Well, that's and I find that sad a bit. I mean, it was nice. I mean, it was maybe too nice. I don't know.
It had a good 2 weeks of popularity.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, did a show on it, and it's like, okay, Sue, is that still operating? TSU?
Oh. The one where you were supposed to get like a percentage of
yes.
That one?
Yeah. I keep checking my PayPal account, but I don't see anything in there. But back to what Scott was saying about the commercialization of social spaces. It is a bit of an oxymoron, but as I say, they have to make money, and it's not our platforms, which sometimes surprises me when people get so up in arms when a company makes a change. It's their right to do that. It pisses us off, so we have to learn it, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, I mean, what you guys were talking about earlier about, being on Instagram and Twitter and everything else, you got to figure out what actually makes sense for your business. And I mean, Blab dragged me back kicking and screaming onto Twitter. I hate Twitter. I always have hated Twitter. I've been on it for years, and I hated Twitter from day one.
Why is that? Why? What annoyed you the most, David?
It's people talking at people, not talking with people.
Mm.
The majority of people are just spouting out stuff, but not actually having conversations, which is why I love Google Plus, is because we have conversations.
Yeah.
And the people that don't have conversations, you can tell because their content has no comments on it. It's not just about getting pluses and shares. It's actually about having conversations, which you can't really do on Twitter in 140 characters, which is now expanded or whatever it is. It's just people talking at people. Most threads and the people that are posting links on Twitter, nobody clicks on those links.
Then why do people like Twitter so much? I mean, I struggle to try and understand or figure out Twitter. So this is an innocent question. Why do people worship at the altar of Twitter as much as they do?
Well, it's a very small group of people that do worship at that altar, but I have to say they're very dedicated. And my experience with Twitter is quite different. I mean, as I said, I had a lot of frustration at the beginning, but I really enjoy it. First of all, because I have, it's my major news feed because I put all my broadcasting and breaking news into one list. And I do have conversations, and I do find that when I share links, they do get retweeted or clicked on. And I do get responses from people when I share their stuff. So it's communicative that way. No, it's not as in-depth, David, as Google Plus, where you have, comments. You don't have the room to do that. But it is a kind of a very casual, oh, hi, I saw your link kind of thing. Thanks for sharing kind of, communication. And I met people on a large amount of people on Twitter.
Well, I mean, okay, so I see BL is asking, she says she gets people to click on links, but here's the question. And I've put it to a lot of people that have a, big follower list on Twitter. When you post something on Twitter, what % of your followers actually are clicking on a link? You might have 10,000 followers, and I bet you get maybe one click on a link. If you look at it, that's an awful percentage. That's an awful engagement percentage on any given piece of content that you're posting.
On my link or a link I share? Because there's a
just
difference.
In general. like, so you can look at the stats on your individual links, and pick your last 10. How many, relative to the size of your follower list, how many actual activities and link clicks are you getting? Likes are great. Likes, love likes, whatever. But how many actual clicks are you getting on those links in your Twitter posts relative to the size of your audience? Well,
you can say that on any platform, though. I mean, how many links, how many clicks and reshares and stuff do you get on Google Plus or Facebook? It's always a smaller percentage of your total follower list. I mean, the thing for Twitter for me is that I get a lot of reshares of my thing, so it's a good distribution channel for me. So if I publish a new post and I share it on Twitter, I know that there's a certain body of people that will share that because it's a new post. If I share other people's posts, you're right, the number of links diminish greatly. I'll get the odd retweet or whatever else, but that's not what primarily I'm using it for. I mean, for me, Twitter is a great content source as well. I mean, I look at people I follow because I know they do good stuff, and I can say, oh, that's a great piece of content. So I either read it for myself or I put it aside for my newsletter or whatever. So it's just another content resource.
So another way of looking at it might be is, for the amount of investment that you have in a tweet, the ratio between that and the interaction that you have. From my point of view, a tweet can be something that occupies all of 15 seconds of my time. Something comes along and spontaneously, there it is, and it goes out. Yeah. So whereas a Google post, I've been, you can easily spend 15 minutes on a Google post.
Easily.
It's long form and sometimes longer, of course. And with Blab, one of the things that they touted about Blab is that it is so closely linked to Twitter that all of a sudden you can harvest in more people to watch or at least look at your Blab spontaneously because of that than than you can if you tried to work through Facebook or through Google Plus or the other platforms.
And that's why Blab is dragging me kicking and screaming back to Twitter.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. So you're right. You're right, David. I mean, I think this is one of the major attractions of Blab for me is that I can actually reach out to the followers I have on Twitter. They would never come over to Google Plus. I got very few. I mean, I made a Google Plus friends list on Twitter, and I have to say, very few people on Google Plus are there as well. But at least this taps into that. So people that may not even know that I do a Google Plus show can see me on Blab, and then so I get to promote my show, but also just be in touch with people that I follow on Twitter and nowhere else.
So David, I have a question for you. What would you say would be the quintessential Blab program? What all of these platforms you can play to their strengths. What if you were to play to Blab's strength? Describe that.
If I was to play to Blab's strength is anytime that there's this, like what we're doing here, a small group active conversation, which then brings in an active dialogue on the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why I really love Blab as opposed to Hangouts on Air, is because there isn't the delay. You have a much more active and engaged audience. And we have this dialogue because we're actually all sitting here, the four of us, on par, as opposed to one person on the big screen and everyone else is the little talking heads. We actually have a more group dynamic dialogue. Mm-hmm. And I like that better about Blab, especially in that, we get to have this sidebar discussion that's going on, which we can tap into while we're having this dialogue. It never felt this alive in Hangouts on Air. To me, it always felt stilted. Like we were how can I explain it? Like I'm trying to, in a real life example, Hangouts on Air felt like we were on a stage on a podium having a conversation, and the audience was very far and delayed. And in order to ask a question, they had to get up, wait in line to get to one of the microphones. Yeah, it's like it's a broadcasting model almost, right? Yeah. You have a studio and you're broadcasting your show. Then once in a while, you open up the floor to somebody. Yeah, exactly. And here it's more like we're at a Chamber of Commerce event. There's four of us, or three of us in this case, are just in a group, just having a chat. And there's people that can come in on our chat and just be asking questions. We can invite them into the fore. It feels more dynamic and alive.
Yeah, I totally agree
Subject
with that.
matter aside, it's really about, how you're using your audience and playing off your audience more than what the specific content of your program is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, that's to me.
I agree. And I think in terms of models, like how would I recommend or advise a client to use Blab? I have to say that everybody I've talked to have no clue what it is. So I have to fill them in on it. But and I say, this is perfect for explaining what you do or getting people involved on even non-for-profits. If you're organization that does a particular thing like help homelessness, whatever, you can have an expert on the subject. It gives itself to the talk show scenario, right? You can have an expert, and then it's like you can invite people to ask a question, they leave, and you can cycle in the questions, and it is very instant, and so there's an energy to it that you don't get on a pre-recorded show.
Yep.
So here's a real world example of that, and that is that the medical sector has been loath to adopt social media and to fully embrace it. So occasionally you'll see things around, but they're very scared because of HIPAA and institutional and whatnot. I have seen more wonderful conversations from the medical community and from inside the medical community on Blab in the last 4 months than I have seen in the last 4 years on all of the other networks combined. So there must be something magical about this constellation of technology, or it might be that society is changing and we're right at the tipping point for some of those more recalcitrant sectors like healthcare, like security, banking, those places.
Well, I wouldn't say, as BL said, it's the ease. It's so easy to get into a Blab. All you need is a Twitter handle. And there are a lot of people who have signed up for Twitter that never use it, right? So they just pull out their old handle, dust it off, and they get into a Blab, and that's it. It's that easy. And I think that's probably a big attraction for a lot of companies.
Yeah, I think what BL was saying, I'm not saying I'm totally against Hangouts. I love Hangouts. I still do them, especially for the ones where, I need to show or share my screen and be able to see it in the high resolution. And, those kinds of functionalities are still great in Hangouts that I haven't seen them anywhere else to that level, and the ability to then go right to YouTube and not have to think about it. It has advantages to it for specific purposes. But in terms of generating and being able to have these live discussions, I think that, Blab is really doing a great job. And I wasn't going to be a Blab fan person. And here we are, we're blabbing about Blab.
Can you ever get on a Blab and not talk about Blab? I think it just, that's, now here's a blabber, Nazim, you're in a lot of Blabs. So see, we just can't do it. We joke about this in the show, on the Ray2Go show. We say, as soon as we jump over to Blab, no matter what our topic's going to be, we're going to end up talking about Blab, and voila, here we go.
Good.
So Nazim,
hey, how's everybody doing? Good evening.
How you doing?
Good.
Where are you?
Good. I just got back home and been in Milan as always, and I love the topic about giving stuff away for free, because once in a blue moon, I do tend to, with friends who might be having a rough time with work, they're like, I can't afford a website. Can you do something real quick for me? So in those situations, that's when you come in and I think, and you just don't, and I'll pay you whenever I can. I say, don't worry about it. Just we'll work it. We'll go down the road and figure it out. So
what do you do when family members do that?
Oh, no, because family members get picky. And they're like, well, hey, I just did these sites for them, and why can't our site be like that one? And I'm like, well, because it's a whole different ballgame.
and you're going to see them at Thanksgiving, so you can never escape.
They'll be cutting the turkey slices a little bit thinner for me. Yeah. But I love what David says. The fact that I still believe Hangouts are great. Each platform has its different functionality. Now they just did the upgrade on Hangouts where they bumped up the video quality.
Oh, the video chats, not the Hangouts.
Yeah, right. You're right. The chats, and it took out the apps ability of putting apps in there, which made a lot of people quite upset.
Well, again, I think they're trying to simplify it. Yes. I think they're
trying to make it like Blab.
Uh-oh.
Well, saying like Crowdcast is taking the four video square thing.
Cross-pollination.
Because a lot of us have been complaining, and here we go. Sorry, Ray, we're talking about Blab again. But,
Nazim did give it a try. We did try to go back on topic. I have to give him that.
Right. No, I'm gonna help Nazim for a second. Let's move away from Blab.
Okay. Bless you, David. Go for
it. So even when I get nonprofits and charities, coming to me, I make sure to establish a minimum investment. I'm just like, even if it's a pittance, like $500 for a website, whatever, a pittance, at least it gets them invested in something, because otherwise you are being treated as a non-entity, and they treat the output as a non-entity because they didn't pay for it. Mm-hmm. Getting some level of just minimum investment has to be part of it.
That's a good point, Dave.
That's a very good point. It's hard. People don't value free.
Exactly. Nobody values free, and like I said, it doesn't have to be much. It just has to be something tangible that they can say, I handed you a check, you're handing me work back. We have some kind of value, even if you are so significantly discounting it to like 99% of what it would cost, at least it's something.
Thank you for that, David, because I'm thinking of a new model where there's residual income and we all share in the bountiness after the fact. And yet to be able to have some skin in the game, if, for them to say, okay, and I know it's true for me too. If when I was in college, right out of high school, I was in the dormitory and we had a food service, right? You paid so much a month and you could go to the cafeteria for 3 meals. I'd get up on Saturdays at 5 minutes before closing time of the cafeteria and stumble down to the cafeteria to get breakfast because, by gosh, I paid for it. It's more important than my Saturday sleep.
Well, it's an incentive. You're right. I mean, you have to have a stake in whatever, right? I mean, if it's free and you get something, it's like content. There's so much content. It's hard to prize something when you see something because you're going to skip on to something else. And that's a shame because there's great content out there that because it's free, it's disposable. We live in a disposable culture.
That's so true. Like we do live in a disposable culture, whether it's, buying a dishwasher and then what do? You don't even pay to get it replaced, or pay to get it fixed. You just throw it out.
That's a sin. I think that's so obscene on so many levels.
And our culture has made it so that it's cheaper to do that than to repair it.
Yeah.
But it extends to every part of our society. And like you said, content, it's all this great advice out there for free. So where's the good advice? The good advice has to be free as well to compete with all the other crap advice that's being given out for free.
But it's interesting, David, though. I think the problem with that, and I'm finding it, and I use it myself, is that people don't have, because there's so much, it takes a lot of time to find it, right? To dig through all the crap to find, to get through all the, what is it, the crap to find the pony, at the bottom there. And it's, and I think people may be willing to pay for that now. So you have services that, like BuzzSumo, that will, give you the trending topics, the most shared products and all that. Because I tend to go now to services like that because I don't have time to skim all my feeds.
Well, imagine if, for example, speaking of search engine optimization, what if Moz did their Whiteboard Fridays, but you had to be a paid subscriber to gain access to them? You would treat them, you would sit down and you would listen to every word that he said.
Yep.
You would take it to heart and you would take it as lessons as opposed to throwaway content like everything else because you were paying for it.
Yes.
Or what's my favorite is when I get, we get solicited by people all the time that say, hey, I've got a great idea. I'll share that idea with you. You build it and we'll be 50-50 partners. And I would say, I'm glad to be a 50-50 partner with you, but you've got to pay me something to make me think that you're serious about making this a real thing. Otherwise, you're just a person with an idea, and I'm the one making it serious by putting in my time, which is worth money to me.
The cartoon Bugs Bunny and the Yosemite Sam effect. Yosemite Sam says to Bugs Bunny, you dig the gold and I'll take it's a partnership. You dig the gold and I'll take it. That's our partnership.
Can I close out on an interesting thing? I gotta go to dinner. Is that all four of us come from Google Plus. We've met on Google Plus before jumping on. So
that's true. That's true. We'll chat. We'll have our little Google Plus ghetto on Blab. You know, it's just
and this has kind of a Google Plus look and feel to it. This conversation that we have, which is a little different than the Blab look and feel. For one thing, all of our lighting is good and our audio's.
That's right. You can tell we're pros. We're HO pros. We have the light in front of the face.
We've learned from all of it. You know, it's like this is how you do it. You do it by having a good microphone, a good speaker, and a good setup. But yeah,
and it makes it a pleasant experience for people watching, right? I mean, but there's so many. But anyway, we won't get into there. I just want to say we went way over time on the Blab, and because I enjoy it so much, and it was great having Nazim. David, thanks so much for jumping in, and for you guys hanging out in the right-hand column with the great comments there. This is a post show for the Ray2Go show, which is every Tuesday at noon ET. So join us next week. Again, it's rayhills.com/Ray2Go. And thanks again for the guest and this great conversation, the highlight of my week. Take care.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.